Hi everybody, welcome back to another live stream. I hope you're all doing well. So today I thought I would just do a music theory crash course for people who want to write music, like songwriters, producers, people who want to learn how to jam better. And I want to sort of convince you that learning music theory is the way to unlock that stuff and make it all make sense. And I think there's sort of a misunderstanding out there, a fear of learning music theory for some people, like, oh, learning music theory might kind of ruin my creativity because I like this ability to just intuitively figure stuff out. And there's something about that might be a little bit true, in the sense that if you think of music theory as rules to follow, it might feel like, oh, but I don't want to follow rules, I just want to make music, right? But if you think of music theory as just a tool to help you understand what's going on, the more music theory you learn, the easier it is to do ear training, which means, you know, listening to a song and figuring out what's going on and almost being able to play along with it in real time. People who do that kind of thing, they understand music theory. And so I thought it might be fun, crash course-wise, to sort of work backwards and to talk about not an iPad, but what's on the iPad. This is a set of chords. I'm just going to play through them. We've got a G chord, an A minor, a B minor, C, D, E minor, and an F sharp half diminished. Here's the G, right? G, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, and this F sharp half diminished. Then we're back to G. Now, if I told you these are the chords in the key of G, what does that mean? Well, that's what I want to talk to you about today. But first, I want to show you how cool the chords in the key of G are, because if you have this set of chords, you can essentially write what is called a chord progression. Now, a lot of people get confused about what a chord progression is, and they think of it as the order of chords in a key, or a set of chords, when really a chord progression is chords that you choose to play in a certain order to make something that sounds good. So what I like to do is make a little grid like this, where each of these little brackets represents a count of 4, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And I just want to plug in some random chords from this set of chords. Let's do G, let's do A minor, let's do E minor, let's do B minor. Let's see how that sounds. And I'm going to just do a really basic strumming pattern. Oh, you might even be able to see it on the page down there. Not quite. Oh well. So we got G, A minor, E minor, B minor. Let's see how this sounds. And I'll just do a down, down, up, up, down. So we just wrote a chord progression. In the chat, if you want to fire off a couple ideas for me to try, I'll show the chat for a second. Maybe there aren't enough people here yet to try this, but here is the set of chords, right? We've got G, A minor, B minor, C, D, E minor, and F sharp diminished. I'll even scoot over here. And, you know, maybe there aren't enough people here yet, and that is okay. I'll tell you what, if anyone has an idea, I will turn the chat back on. But what we got here is, let's erase this one. Let's try a different one. How about we start with A minor, D, let's do E minor, G. Let's see what that sounds like. Let's see what that sounds like. So we got A minor, that's kind of cool too. My guitar is slightly out of tune. But that sounds pretty good. Now, this is just like, in my opinion, this is like a cheat code. This is the set of chords in the key of G major. But where do they come from, and what does it mean that these are the chords in G major? And what else can we do with this other than like strumming some chords? Well, I've got my recording software ready to go with a drum beat that we can make, some keyboards that we can play, and we could make some full band sounding music just with this information. But first, I got to talk about where does this information come from? And like, what is this? So starting with a G major scale. So all major scales follow the major scale formula, which is, if you don't know, you should probably know, right? But we got whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. What the heck does this mean? Well, on guitar, on any instrument really, we've got the basic intervals of the note next door and the skipping a note. So I'll zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about a little more clearly here. Oop, let's even do a super zoom. So if I play any note on the guitar and I move toward the body 1 fret, I have now played an interval called a half step, which on my iPad is H, right? And if I play a note and then I skip a fret, I am now playing a note called an interval called a whole step. So the distance from here to here is called a whole step. So now, what does this mean to say this is the major scale formula? Well, what it means is we pick a note. In this case, we're going to do G because we already have the chords in the key of G, but now we're trying to figure out why are those the chords in the key of G. We're going to start on G and we're going to go whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And then in a minute, I've prepped my camera guitar. We're going to go over here and map some stuff out with the fancy camera guitar. But for now, we got to start on the iPad and just the visual of the guitar here. So without really knowing the notes, without really knowing what they're called other than the first one, this is a G. As long as we know what a G is, we can figure out a major scale by moving through the major scale formula. So we start here and we go whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. That is a G major scale. And if it's even more in focus, it's easier to see. So there it is, major scale. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. One really important thing to remember is that the steps are not the notes. They're the space between the notes. So this right here cannot be a whole step or a half step because that whole step or half step has to be the distance between here and another note. So anytime I say whole step, I'm not talking about this note being a whole step. I'm talking about the distance between this note and this note is a whole step. So we've got, here's a note, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. So now, let's pop over to the camera guitar to talk about this a little bit more. And I'll meet you there, and I'm gonna have a sip of this nice beverage. And then remember, we're still gonna map this out using like a fun beat in recording software. We're gonna actually make some music together using this information. So here's a G. There's also a G down here. And this is where the guitar gets super weird. Because hopefully you know from tuning the guitar that this note is this open note. This note is this open note. This is this open note. So part of what's nice about cramming the neck in a small space like this is if I were to visualize what I did before like this, well now I'm off the neck. You can't see it anymore. But if I go here, well I can just play this note here instead, and now I have G, A, B, C, and then instead of playing this D, I can play this open D, E, F sharp, and G instead of this one. This is what's so cool about guitar, is it has this kind of rapping thing that happens. In other words, W-R-A-P, not rap, not like R&B, but like saran wrap. So if we look at the circle, which is, I always forget how to point to it, right here, each of these notes represents a half step. So anytime you see me skip a note, like from G to A, that's a whole step. Anytime you see me play the note next door, that is a half step, right? So check out the circle while I play this G major scale. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Or, here's a note, and then we go whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So that is a G major scale. And I can actually say, okay, here's my root note G. And what my software does is it just kind of maps out any instance of G that it finds. So here's a G, and then the next note of the scale, A, right here. And again, this is just mapping out every instance of that note. So you can see I could have played G, A, but now I'm playing G, A, and we'll just keep this going. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And now, right? Pretty cool. And I can play it here too. So now, I have something for you to imagine. Imagine I walked up to you and I said, let's suppose I don't actually speak English. Let's suppose I speak Spanish. And I come up to you in Spanish and I say, hey, I've learned how to speak English. And I go, check this out. And then I go, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Like, hang on a second. That's just the alphabet. You're not speaking English. You're using the alphabet English uses, but you're not speaking English. So the difference between being in the key of G and playing a G major scale is sort of the difference between speaking English and saying the alphabet. In other words, a G major scale is the alphabet we use to play in the key of G major. What do I mean by that? Well, remember that set of chords? Which, let me see if I can pull those up without having to go get them. No, I have to go get them. This is the problem with live streaming, is you can only plan for so much. So, we got this set of chords that's G, A minor, B minor, C, D, E minor, and F sharp half diminished. What it means for these chords to be in the key of G is that we're only using the notes from a G major scale when we play this set of chords. Or rather, to say it even more clearly, these are the only possible chords, only possible triads you can play using only a G major scale. Check this out. You'll notice I'm only playing these green notes of the G major scale when I play these chords. G, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp half diminished, and then we're back to G. So this is what I mean when I say that a G major scale is the alphabet we use to sort of speak the language of the key of G major. But where do these chords come from, and how do you know for sure that these are the only possible chords, only possible triads we can play in the key of G? And why do I keep saying triads and correcting myself instead of saying chords? Well, it's because a triad is a type of chord. A triad is a 3-note chord separated by another interval called major third or minor third. So we already talked about whole steps, and we already talked about half steps, right? Well, if we take a whole step and we add another half step to it, well, that distance is the distance of what's called a minor third. And if we take that minor third and we add another half step to it, that distance is called a major third. And chords are made of stacks of major thirds and minor thirds. So G to B is a major third, and G to B flat is a minor third. But here's a really cool thing. We can go up the scale in thirds going like this. Doesn't that sound really nice and really harmonious? That's because most of our harmony, meaning like the intervals that sound good to us, is based on thirds. So by essentially what I'm doing is I'm taking the scale and I'm simultaneously playing the scale starting on the third note. And it sounds like, which sounds lovely. But we're not playing chords yet, and that is because chords are a stack of 2/3, or in other words, 3 notes with intervals of thirds between them. Now I know this is a lot, and but that's why it's a crash course. So here, if we play essentially what we do, not even essentially, this is exactly how to do it. You just play every other note of the scale until you get 3 notes, and that is your first chord in the key. So G, B, D, next one, A, C, E, next one, and then we got and what we have just done is we have outlined the theory behind the chords in a key, and that is there's 7 possible notes in the key: G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp, because we just get back to G, right? That's, by the way, is why this playing from here to here is called an octave, is because oct means 8, and it's 8 scale notes away. It's the same note. But when we do this every other system, we end up with a set of chords. And if you notice, G, B, and D, well, hang on a second. Those are the notes in a G major chord. When I just strum a G major chord, I'm playing extra notes, but they're just duplicates of G, B, and D. So we would call this the 1 chord, the chord based on the first note of the scale. If we go to A minor here, A, C, E, right? Well, those are the notes in the chord, but we don't usually play an A minor like this. Typically on guitar, you try to find the easiest way to play the chord. But if you look, that's just A, C, and E. And if we go to B, B, D, and F here, that is a B minor chord. Oh, and if we go to C, E, G, those are the notes in a C major chord. Same with D. D, F sharp, A, which is this, there we go. And then we've got E, G, B, that's an E minor chord. This was a D major, this is an E minor. And then we've got F sharp, A, C, which is an F sharp diminished chord. So these are the chords in the key of G major. And the way you get those chords is you start by playing the first note of the scale, first, third, fifth. That gives you the chord based on the first note of the scale. Then you have 2, 4, 6. That gets you the chord based on the second note of the scale. One of the cool things about this is, I'm going to go back to the iPad, if you don't mind. By the way, any super chats you want to send me, if they're questions, I'll read them. Super chats today, I think, are going to go toward a haircut. What I love about this system is we figured out these notes: G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Well, what if we put a different note there, right? That'd be cool. Ray says, thanks for all this information. Oh, you're welcome. And you got me closer to a haircut, so I appreciate it. So first of all, there's stuff that I don't know if I have enough time to explain, but part of why we use Roman numerals to describe the chords in a key is because of a very cool sort of logic thing. Magdowich, yeah, I'm live. Feel free to ask me questions if you have any questions. What's so cool about this major scale formula is that it almost doesn't matter what note you put as the root note, because think of it this way. If I just put root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, guess what? Regardless of what note this is, the distance from here to here, from the first note to the second note, is always going to be a half step. I mean, a whole step. Excuse me, it's right here, W, whole step, right? The distance from the first to the second note is always going to be a whole step. The distance from the first note to the third note is always going to be 2 whole steps, which is called a major, it's called a major third. That is the type of interval that is. And that means the distance from here to here is always going to be the same, because half whole. So essentially what this means is the chord based on the first note of the scale will always be a major chord. The chord based on the second note of the scale will always be a minor chord. Third note will always be a minor chord. 4 always be major. 5 will always be a major chord. 6 will always be a minor chord. 7 will always be a minor, not a minor chord, excuse me. It will always be a diminished chord. And then 8 is 1, right? Which I'm going to erase so it's less confusing. But regardless of what note you put here, whether it's G or A or B flat or F, the order of chords in that key is always going to be major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. And I'll prove it to you, right? Check this out. So Ryan asks a really good question. Ryan says, what determines the major and minor order? So check this out. A major triad basically has its own root note, which, by the way, this is the other confusing thing, is when I play a chord based on the second note of the scale, this becomes the root note of that chord. So there's a hierarchy here. This is the root note of the key, but if I make a chord based on the third note of the scale, that becomes the root note of that chord. So let's make this clear for a second. A major triad goes root, major third, and then I gotta explain a little bit of anatomy of a chord, but I'm more than happy to do that because of such a good question. So here's how this works. When you create a chord, and I'll use G as an example, G, B, and D, right? And the reason this is helpful with the way we were just talking about is this is actually the root note of the scale, the third note of the scale, and the fifth note of the scale. And when we talk about chords by themselves, we use this language. The note that I started the chord with is now called the root note of the chord. The note that is the next chord up is called the third of the chord. The note that's the next note but up is called the fifth. And it's partly because of this scale system where you make chords by skipping notes of the scale. Yeah, so the third note mixed up, don't get the third note mixed up with the major third, that is correct. So check this out. We have these intervals here, and I already explained them earlier, but I will make a little metric here for you, where we have intervals that are made of whole steps and half steps, right? Half steps and whole steps. And if you were here earlier, you were seeing what whole steps and half steps are. So if we have something called a minor second, that means the distance between those two notes is a half step. If we have a major second, the distance between those two notes is a whole step. If we have a minor third, the distance between those two notes is a half step and a whole step. And if we have a major third, the distance between those two notes is a whole step and a whole step. And so lowercase m3 is basically the same as saying a minor third, and uppercase m3 is the same as saying major third. Now, like I said, this is a crash course. So if this doesn't all totally make sense, guess what? I am completely here to teach you some stuff, but also to let you know that I have an online school that I've been working really hard on for the past 5 years, and I have 2 courses I think you'd really like: Music Theory for Guitar 1 and Music Theory for Guitar 2. Music Theory for Guitar 1 is 7 lessons, video lessons with PDF summaries, PDF homework, and play-along practice tracks to help you understand the stuff that I'm crash coursing through right now, which is major scales, minor scales, intervals, the circle of fifths, triads, stuff like that. Music Theory for Guitar 2 is, also, I think it's like 8 or 9 video lessons with PDF homework and, fun stuff to practice. And this is going through more like the chords in a key, how to get the hang of that stuff, how to get the hang of Roman numerals and seventh chords and stuff. John H. Kingston is a member. John H. Kingston says, join Patreon, it's worth it. I think you might like it. It's $12 a month. Or you can just buy those courses for, I think, $35. I do think the better deal is joining Patreon, but feel free to check it out. So here is what we're looking at. What we have, like I was talking about earlier, is that intervals are measures of musical distance. So minor second, you could think of it as, here's a note, and then here is another note. Whole step, here's a note, here's another note, right? Here's a note, here's another note. So these are all just measurements of musical distance. And the difference between a major chord or a major triad and a minor triad is the distance between each of these notes. So a major chord starts the root note. Between the root note and the third is a major third, and then between the third and the fifth is a minor third. And if it helps to use this language, you could think whole, whole, and then half whole, right? So when we look at this little chart right here, and you go, okay, I'm starting on root note, I'm skipping to here, well, that's whole, whole, that's a major third, and then I'm skipping to here, half whole, that's a minor third. So a major triad is root note, major third, minor third. That, by definition, is what a major triad is. A minor triad flips that. And if we have to sort of map this out on guitar a little more, I am more than happy to do that. So a minor triad starts with a minor third, ends with a major third. So we have root note, minor third, major third. And I think I will spend some time. Oh yeah, you guys, thanks for all the super chats. I'm getting closer and closer to a haircut. This is awesome. Appreciate it. So I'm going to map this out a little more clearly on the guitar here so you can see what I'm talking about. So here's a note, right? From here to here, that is a half step. From here to here, that is a whole step. From here to here, that is, what is this? This is a whole step plus a half step. That's called a minor third. From here to here, that is called a major third. So like I said, chords are made of minor thirds and major thirds. So if we go from here to here, that is a major third. And then from here, that's a minor third. You can see half step, whole step, right? So the distance from here to here, major third, distance from here to here, minor third. That makes it a major chord. If I were to do this and flip that relationship, well, now I've turned this major chord into a minor chord because we've got, that's a whole step and a half step, whole step plus half step. As you hopefully remember from this, if it starts with a minor third, which is a minor third is a whole step plus a half step, and then it ends with whole step, that makes it a minor chord. So major, minor, major, right? So check this out. Every other note starting on the first note of the scale, that's a major chord. Every other note starting on the second note of the scale, well, A to C, that's a minor third, right? Whole step, half step. And then C to E, that's a major third. So that makes A minor a minor chord. And if you notice, you could do this for every note of the scale. But what you end up with is the same thing every time, which is you end up with the chord based on the first note of the scale always ends up major, second note of the scale always ends up minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. And this is such a well-known thing in music that people end up writing out chord progressions using Roman numerals. Why do they use Roman numerals? Well, partly it's to separate from this language, which usually represents notes of the scale. When you say like the third, you're usually talking about a single note. Or when you talk about the seventh note of the scale, the sixth, right? You're usually talking about single notes. Roman numerals, the 1 chord, the 2 chord, the 3 chord. It's usually this language of the 3 and not the third, right? That's the distinction. So when you talk about it, you say the 1, the 2, the 3, and when you write it as Roman numerals. The other cool thing about Roman numerals is they have uppercase and lowercase. And this is a cool shorthand for writing chord progressions to show if something is major or minor, right? Lowercase is minor, uppercase is major. So this chord progression that we already wrote out is going to be a 2, 5, 6, 1 chord progression. Here's how it sounds, right? Yeah, so Ryan, we're not going to get off track, but, oh, you can't really see that. Ryan says, don't want to get off track, but is there also minor fourth, major fourth, and minor fifth, perfect fifth? Sort of, but let's not get off track because that's not relevant to what we're talking about now. Again, check out my Music Theory for Guitar 1 series. You can easily find it on the front page of my Patreon, link in the description, easy to find, patreon.com/ScottPaulJohnson. So, now that we're talking about just general theory concepts, to me this is the core concept to understand if you want to write songs, if you want to be able to play music with other people, if you want to be a producer and you want to hire someone to play over your track. It's really nice to be able to talk about what your track is doing to prepare that person for the track. Also, if you have some ideas for what someone else could do with one of your tracks as a producer, it's really helpful to be able to use this language to say, you know, I really want to emphasize the seventh of the 4 chord or something. Like, really cool language here. So with this general stuff, part of what's so freaking cool about taking it from on paper to the guitar is there's another really awesome thing called voicings. And voicings are, okay, now that we know what the notes in the chord are, what do we actually do with that information? And so I'm going to pop back over here, and we're going to use this funky little chord progression here to say, first of all, we'll map it out on the scale circle a little bit better so you can see what's going on, and then we'll talk about voicings and how dramatically different a chord progression can sound depending on the voicings you choose. So A minor, right, A, C, E. Here's the most basic way to play an A minor. What's the other chord progression? The other chord in this progression is D major, which is D, F sharp, and A. D, F sharp, A. It's called the 5 chord because it's based on the 5th note of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then every other note. But the easiest way to play it is down here. What's our next chord? E minor. It is the 6th chord, which means it is based on the 6th note of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we play every other note, and that's why E minor is E, G, and B. Cool. And then our last chord in this progression is G major, which we already know how to make that one. We've talked about it a ton. So we've got A minor, D major, E minor, G major. So how could we have fun with this? And what are voicings? Voicings are a way of saying, okay, this is a set of A's, C's, and E's. But what if we want to make things sound a little more interesting? What if we want to sort of spice it up a little bit? Well, we could go, I'm going to play this A way down here, and then I'm going to play this C right here, and this E. Well, that sounds a lot different than what I was doing before. it's kind of cool. What I'm doing here is I'm playing with my thumb. I'm just kind of hanging out on this A, and then I'm playing the third of the chord and the fifth of the chord up here. Well, maybe I can do the same thing here if I play a D. Instead of playing this, maybe I could play D right here, and then I could play F sharp and A up here. I'm still playing a D major chord. I'm still playing D, F sharp, and A. But I'm having a little fun with it. So if I go, that's kind of cool. What about the E minor chord? How can we do that? So E, G, B. So what if we did there's a G and a B up here. So basically what I did is I picked a thing to do, which was I'm gonna play a low bass note and then I'm gonna play the third and the fifth of the chord up here, and now I've got this cool system where I'm going. And what do I do for the, we've got G, B, and D. Could I go, that's a little weird to play, but I need to figure out a way to play a D and a B together. And I guess I could play a D and a B right here. So I've got A, C, E. That's kind of cool. But you see how just thinking differently about a chord progression can totally change the way it feels. There's other ways you can do this too. If I wanted to play what are called open voicings, where I'm trying to play root, fifth, and third, kind of playing things backwards, more spread out. And this would be a fun way to play this progression too, if I'm going like but do you hear how changing the voicing like that, which means just rearranging the way you play literally just the root, third, and fifth, can completely change how it feels to play those chords. The cool thing too, and we'll get into this when we get into softwares, if you're playing with a bass player, a lot of times you don't need to play those super low notes, and you can come up with other interesting ways to play these progressions. Like, we'll get into this more as we get into the software, but first I want to stop. I want to make sure some questions are being answered here, so let's do this. Let's see, Paul Blade says, hi everyone, part of the course, super worth it. Making progress in understanding how to play what you want is so rewarding and kind of the point of playing. So, Paul's talking about my courses. Patreon.com/ScottPaulJohnson. Been working on it for a long time, really putting my heart and soul into it. If this is the kind of thing you want to do, be creative, understand the guitar better, be able to play along with other people and write your own music, I think you'd really love my Patreon. Jorge or George says, how do you know when you are using chords in a key if you're in a certain major key and you are not in its relative minor, since they're sharing the exact same chords? So that might be a question for another time, but, well, this is a crash course. Let's do a little teaser. So every major scale has a relative minor scale that uses all the same notes. And the relative minor scale of every major scale starts on its sixth note. So So in other words, an E minor scale and a G major scale share all the same notes. And what that means is, as you are suspecting, Jorge, is if they share all the same notes, they must share all the same chords, right? And yeah, they do. E minor, F sharp diminished, G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, back to E minor. Oh, they share all the same notes. And Jorge was saying, sorry for my English, but essentially, how can you tell if you're in the key of E minor or the key of G major? There's a lot to that, but it essentially boils down to, in some cases, it may not matter that much. In other cases, it sort of depends on what chord feels like home. Like if I write a chord progression like this, E minor, A minor, C, B minor. Well, that chord progression doesn't have a G in it anywhere, but it does really sound good to go back to E minor, so I would say that's probably in the key of E minor, right? And if we're playing a chord progression, oops, wrong button. If we're playing a chord progression that's going like G, C, A minor, D. Well, there isn't an E minor in that chord progression, which means, well, we're probably not in the key of E minor. That's another important thing to think about here too. That is, chord progressions in a key do not have to contain, usually don't contain every chord in the key. This is a 4-chord progression, and it sounds great. We don't need to have all 7 chords in the key to make it really be like, yeah, this is the key. In fact, there are some really great classic songs out there that are only 2 chords, and they're still in a key, right? You don't have to use a ton of chords in a chord progression to make some interesting sounding music. In fact, now that we're talking about minor key stuff, let's do a little comparison here, and then let's write some something in a minor key, and let's do some recording. How's that sound? You know, I think thanks to your super chats, I'm getting pretty close to a haircut. You're also more than welcome to ask me any questions you want. Let's see. We had another question here from David Coward who says, is there an easy way to know what fret you start on the E string for each of the 5 positions? I can see easily remembering for one key, but how do you quickly know when you change keys? So for each of the 5 pentatonic positions, that might be a question I should save for later because it might derail a little bit of the, wow, Deepak, thank you, appreciate it. That might be a question for later because it's not directly related to what we're talking about now, but let's do this. So what I like to do with chords in a key is I like to put them in a circle. G, A minor, B minor, C, D, E minor, F sharp, half diminished. Also, for my sort of hardcore fans, I have a funny thing to tell you, but I'll have to tell you in a minute. So here we have G, that's the 1 chord in the major key. And over here, we've got E minor, that's the 1 chord in the minor key. That's right. In the major key, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is 6, this is 7, and then we're back to 1. In the minor key, we literally just relabel everything, but it's all the same chords. So this is now 4, this is now 5, this is now 6, still major and minor, and this is now 7. So literally all the same chords, just relabeled to focus on this one as the 1 chord instead of this one. In other words, the 6th chord in every major key is the 1 chord of its relative minor key. So we're going to write a chord progression in the key of E minor, and then we're going to use some recording software and try to make this really fun. But first, let me just organize this so it's easier to see, and excuse my horrible penmanship. So let's do the same thing. And I don't know how many people are here right now, but help me make a couple of chord progression ideas here. Throw out 4 chords in an order based on this list. Nothing outside of this list. I won't count it. But anyone in the chat, if you want to participate, I'll write a chord progression based on whatever riff, whatever chord progression we come up with together here. So feel free to fire some off in the chat. And while you're here, I am going to play around with my own. I'm just going to tinker. But like I said, in the chat, let's keep that list up. And what do we have? David Coward says E minor, A minor, B minor. X Trigger says 1, 6, 4, 2. That would be that's kind of cool. True S Armor says 1, 4, 1, 5. Ryan says G, F sharp diminished, B minor, E minor. That would be I like all of these. I'm trying to figure out which one I want to do more. I think for the recording that I'm doing, I might want to skip the 2 chord, but let's see. 1, 5, 6, 4. Yeah, these are all great. These are all cool. I think we'll take one of these and we'll mess with it a little bit. I think all of these are cool, but I think for the sake of keeping things simple, I wanna lose the 2 chords. So what do we have? 1, 3, 4, 5 is nice and simple. 1, 4, 1, 5. Let's try both of these. Let's try 1, 4, 1, 5, and then maybe our other progression could be, actually, I'll tell you what, we'll take David Coward's E minor, A minor, B minor, and we'll stay on B minor. That's cool. And then we'll take, let's try 1, 5, 6, 4. So 1, 5, 6, 4. So here's 2 progressions we can play around with. And while I'm setting up my software, I got to tell you a funny secret. I have seen many comments on my YouTube channel about people wondering about my makeup, which is really funny. People have suspected that I put a little red on my cheeks. But the reality is, recording under hot lights like this in a very small room with all kinds of recording equipment around me, it just keeps getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And I do have an air conditioner, but it gets pretty noisy. So basically I start a video and then the heat gradually keeps rising and rising and rising and rising until it is it's cooking me. So that's why these streams never last longer than about an hour, hour and a half, because I got to turn the air conditioning back on. That was a nice excuse just to have it on for a second. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to we're gonna make a beat. And I've got this little 60s soul. By the way, if you're wondering, and I'll stop for questions in a minute here. I see a few more questions piling up, but I think what I want to show you is this is my Akai LPK 25. And I'm using it just to trigger sounds. If you're not familiar with recording software, something really, really cool is you can use a MIDI keyboard to trigger different sounds. So right now, I'm triggering a drum set, but I could also use it to trigger I could use it to trigger a keyboard. I could use it to trigger all sorts of things, right? Right? So many different things. And it makes it really fun to make music when you can, even if you don't play piano, the other cool thing, and I'll show you, is you can write a drum beat and then you can fix it later because MIDI doesn't record the way audio records. So let me show you this. And I'm gonna pick just a tempo here. I think we want to do something slowish. Yeah, something slow and groovy. I'm gonna turn this down for a second so I can really hear the click. I'm gonna go. Yeah, that works. So if I click on this, make it a little bigger here, you can see these are all of the beats that I just played. And the color, the more red it is, the harder I played it. The more green and blue it is, the quieter I played it. But as you can see, some of these are like not really on beat. So one of the coolest things about MIDI is it doesn't really record the audio of your performance, it just records the data, which means you can go in and fix it. So I just clicked a button that locked it all into 16th notes, which maybe isn't great for a performance, but is great for if you're just trying to make a nice metronome for yourself to play along with. Right? So let's do this. Let's just start with a strumming pattern, and we'll talk about how strumming patterns are cool, but they're maybe not the best way to record yourself all the time. First of all, let me make sure this tone is working. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Let's see. So, okay, I forgot where I was going. That's right, E minor, A minor, B minor. So this is one way that I could play it. And if we play along with this beat, maybe it'll sound good, maybe it'll sound kind of like, oh, it needs a little something more. Let's try it. So that doesn't sound bad. Also, I have to switch a setting so I can really hear this music better, but. So here is one of the cool things about playing with other people, is if I know that I'm gonna play with a bass player, I could play something totally different. If I know I'm gonna play with a keyboard player, I could play something totally different. And what I could think about is, instead of playing a strumming pattern like that, which I could totally still do, but instead of playing a strumming pattern, I could think, I could accent, those snare hits, which would be really fun. And what was our beat? Right? That's one thing I could do. And that might be not like the most amazing option, but it still might be something a little bit more interesting, a little more fun, partly because nailing the timing of that snare beat. 3, 4. And now, another thing that I'm doing with my strumming is I'm not trying to hit all the strings. I'm actually just trying to aim for the top 4 strings. And it sounds nice. I might want to dial in the tone a little bit. I'm gonna, but do you hear how different that sounds? Right? You hear how it sounds a lot different than just doing a classic strumming pattern. And the other cool thing is if we were to play with like a keyboard player, if they were to play a different beat, maybe they want to play along with those hi-hats that are going ting, 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 ting. And maybe I'm gonna skip the first beat and I'm gonna go, See how that sounds? 2, 3, 4, And now we've got and all of a sudden, we took that beat that started out as just, whatever we were doing before this thing. Right? Now, what did I do on keyboard, by the way? I literally just played the same chords I was playing on guitar. And what a lot of people don't realize, especially when you first start out, is that the chord progression, everybody that you're playing with plays that chord progression. So when I was playing the keyboards, I was playing literally the same chords. We were playing E minor, so I played G, B, E, and then I played A, C, E, and then I played B, D, F sharp. Just the chords. I'm not playing anything else. When you're playing with other people, this is common sense to a musician, but if you've never heard it before, it might help you understand. Everyone's playing the same chords at the same time when you're playing music together. We're just interacting with those chords in a different way. This keyboard player is playing, me, is playing, I'm playing a different rhythm than the guitar player. But we're playing the same chords. And that's true for bass as well, which I'm going to play a little bit of bass for you now. Because part of the magic of playing with a band and not having to play all the parts yourself is you get to leave room for other people to interact with the chords in the ways that they like to interact with the chords. So, this is my bass. I can't believe Music Man discontinued this bass, although I guess it doesn't matter because I've already got one, but I just think this is a great bass. So, what do we do with bass? What's the deal with bass? Why does it sound so cool also? And why is it not in tune already? Give me a sec here. It's because so, as we already discussed the chord progression we're playing is E minor, A minor, B minor. So bass doesn't play chords. Not usually, anyway. What does bass do if bass doesn't play chords? Well, does it just play one note? That doesn't sound super fun. Well, essentially what bass does is it accents the root note, but then it does a lot more than that. But if we think about, okay, here's an E, here's an A, and here's a B, well, if we start there and we play along with this groove, just adding root notes is going to sound pretty cool. Check it out. Oh, I forgot it stays on B minor. So that's pretty cool, but hang on a second. A chord is made of root, third, and fifth. Well, what the bass player typically does, I would say, is like the core bass player thing is to emphasize the root and then sometimes play the fifth of the chord if it makes it sound interesting. So if I play, here's the root note E, and then here's the fifth, here's the root note of A, here's the root note of, or the fifth of A, and then here's the root note B, here's the fifth of B, and I can craft a little bass line using just roots and fifths that make it sound a little more interesting. Let's try this. I forgot. So that's like essentially the basic role of the bass. But the bass player can also throw in thirds sometimes, can also throw in the 7, which, yeah, Gens X's, you beat me to it. Right, and now we can have a little bit more fun. Oh, I keep... Right, you get what I'm saying. The bass player kind of fills in the low end with mainly roots and fifths and then kind of accenting. I mean, the basic way to think about it is playing the root right when the chord changes so everybody knows, oh, we've changed to that chord now. But then kind of... So it's, if you think about it, it's like when it changes, I'm playing the root, but I might be goofing around with a little bit of pentatonic stuff, but it's mainly centering around root, fifth, and 7 for minor chords like this, which is cool. So here's, we got root, 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 root. get the idea. So this, to me, is like, oh, I might have to preach. And I might actually also feel like maybe I got to turn my air conditioning on so I can go, over to my guitar church here. We're gonna have to deal with some air conditioning. Hang on a sec. Ooh, it is getting too hot in here. It doesn't help that we're going through a heat wave, but here we are. And we are going to guitar church. So, welcome to Guitar Church. Why are we here? Well, we're here because I have a message for you. I have a musical guitar message I want to preach to you today. And part of what I want to talk to you about is the missing piece for most people's music education. You learn songs. You learn how to play more and more difficult stuff. You learn scales. You kind of learn how to play with other people. You learn more complicated stuff. And at a certain point you go, I think I'm tired of learning songs. What's missing from, like, why does this not feel like it's like a thing for me? And part of it is no one teaches you how to make music, how to write music. And that is my passion. That's the thing I care the most about. And that's kind of the thing I care the most about on my online school. This is why I'm fielding a weekly live Q&A. This is why I do all these music theory courses to help you understand how music theory maps out on the fingerboard. This is why I do sort of soloing lessons, because learning how to improvise is part of learning how to write music. This is why I have these melody making series, all of this stuff. And I'm working on more. I've got all these mindset lessons, practice thoughts about, hey, music has a lot of built-in assumptions that people make, and they never think about questioning those assumptions, and then they quit playing music because they're not living up to these assumptions that they made, that they never questioned whether those assumptions are true or not. And I'm here to tell you, maybe those assumptions are not true. So, where do we go from here? Should I write some more music? Should I let it cool down for a minute first? Do you want to hang out with my dog Betty for a minute? Yeah, I haven't even seen how many people are watching right now. Oh, nice. We got a good thing going here, everybody. Why don't I just keep it going until people are bored with me? Is that a fun idea? No. I do think, if anyone has any questions, that's always a helpful thing to do. But how are we feeling about this music theory crash course so far? And are there any other questions that I missed? Oh, there is a question that I missed. Let's see. Okay, hang on a second here. So, okay, air conditioning off. Welcome. Okay, it's still hot in here, but that helped a little bit. So, we got some question from Burke, who says, "Hi all, I have a question. Going through the music theory courses now, I do have a question. Should I supplement the lessons with other lessons in songs, or just go through as recommended? I'm only asking as I'm not sure if I'm interested in songwriting, but more so being able to understand the fretboard theory and develop an ear to be able to play songs that I enjoy. I just found out about your channel a couple of hours ago. Lucky catching you live. 10 out of 10 system you come up with simultaneous visualizations on the..." Oh, sorry, that's a different Burke. So Burke Akakil says this stuff. So here's the thing. You don't have to be interested in songwriting, right? That's like saying, I would learn English, but I don't want to write a book, or I don't want to make speeches. It's like, no. You learn English to communicate your ideas, right? You're a person with your own thoughts and feelings, and saying, I want to learn that language, but I don't want to share my own thoughts and feelings, that's sort of a misunderstanding, right? When you say you're not interested in songwriting, that's totally fair. I'm not saying that to be a good musician, you have to fully write your own songs. But are you trying to tell me you're never curious about, oh, what would happen if I took these 4 chords and I just kind of messed with them a little bit, or I really like finger picking. What if I just kind of, you know, what if I took these 4 chords that I've been playing and I played them on acoustic guitar. Let me grab my little Martin over here. You know, you say, okay, so I'm just curious. This is just an experiment. I'm not committing to writing an album or making a whole song, but I've got... Am I a songwriter now? No, I just wrote something really nice. And guess what? The only way, in my opinion, the only way to really understand music theory is to just be able to use it to make stuff. And the same way to be sure that you've learned a new language is to be able to say, oh, actually, last time I ate here, I had this chicken and I really liked that, and I was wondering if I could order that with a side of rice or something. Like, that's asking for what you want, right? In the same sense, learning music theory without writing music is like without practicing figuring out what you like and what you like about it and what it's called. Does that make more sense? So yeah, I'm gonna feature my dog here. And the super chats for this next segment are going to go toward treats for Betty. Anyone who gives me a super chat, I will give her a treat on stream. But first, she's got to show her face. Betty, do you want to say hi? You want to say hi to the people? Do you want to come over here? You want to stay in bed? I get it. You've been working really hard today. She's been keeping the room warm. Okay, so let's see. Oh, we had a couple other questions here. We'll just do some question time for a little bit here. So, yeah, thanks for reminding me, True S. I should at least roll my sleeves up. I'm getting hot. Jen's Exis says, what genres do you play? Let's start there. I suppose my band, Hot Bodies in Motion, which you can find on Spotify, everywhere. We just put out, speaking of a hot day, we just put out an EP called Heatwave, which I mixed and did most of the recording for everything. That doesn't mean I recorded everything, but I used my gear. I engineered the project, did a lot of recording. And we play kind of like, I mean, you could call it like indie pop, funky, with like a bluesy, funky flair to it. I like writing all kinds of things. I mean, I don't know. It's I grew up playing more like right. I grew up playing that kind of thing at farmers markets, and I like writing that kind of thing, but my band is more of a funky soul, funky soul-y rock kind of stuff. I really don't think too much about genre when I'm writing, and I think when you get more and more of these music theory tools, you start thinking less about genre and more just about expressing yourself, and it ends up kind of fitting into a genre sometimes, and then you can kind of create a filter for yourself where you're like, well, I like these kinds of bass lines, I love playing this kind of rhythm guitar, and I like these kinds of beats. And that ends up sounding kind of like a funky thing, or that ends up sounding like a punk rock kind of thing. It really depends. Yeah. Oh, Jen's Exis sent a super chat, and the chat said, feed that dog. So we're going to give Betty a treat now. Give me a sec here. Okay, Betty. The people have requested that I give you a treat. Today we're going to give you one of these little zooks. Yeah, you want a treat? I'm going to make you pull it out of my hand. You're so gentle. She's such a gentle girl. Good girl. Good girl. Okay, the important question from Ian, though. Thank you for feeding my dog. That was awesome. Okay, Ian says, I love to noodle around on my piano or guitar. I've just practiced and messed around for a long time by myself, but I get stuck in a rut and I find I play the same stuff over and over. So, part of, where do we go with this, Ian? So this is a classic, a common thing that happens. And part of what's going on here is the way you stop getting stuck in a rut is you assess, what am I doing? What specifically am I doing over and over? And what do I want to do, right? Practice is tricky because, sometimes practice is this sort of, it's important for it to be this kind of mindless, soupy, just see what happens kind of thing. And there's a lot of value there, and it's really important. I would say that's the place where most songwriting comes from, is just noodling around. But then it's important to take notes on what you like and you don't like, and maybe find names for those things. Like maybe when you learn some music theory and you go, oh, I'm messing around with 1, 4, 5, 6 in a major key a lot. And maybe I want to mess around with secondary dominants, or maybe I want to experiment with minor keys a little bit more, or maybe I really like Dorian mode and I haven't messed with that. I would say, Ian, just to, to continue to be a shill for my own brand. Can you even be a shill for your own brand? I don't know. On my Patreon, my online school, I've got, oh, thanks for the super chat. I appreciate that. Lau. Probably Lauren, I can't tell. But what I'm trying to say, Ian, is on my Patreon, I'll just show you what it looks like. I have some stuff designed to help people get out of ruts, just like you're talking about. And what I have is community challenges. And I gotta make sure I pull this up just right here. So let's see, where are we? So, okay, here we go. Perfect. So I should be able to share my screen and show you just a list here. And you tell me, if this doesn't seem like it would be helpful to you, then sorry. But what these community challenges are is they're little writing prompts. This one says, write something based on the 12-bar blues. This one says, write something starting with a melody. This one is work on a previous challenge. I've done, 100 of these now, so I'm trying to get more people to work on a previous challenge. This one just says, write something in the key of C major, write something stripped down, collaborate with a fellow patron, write something using a minor 4 chord in a major key. I did a lesson about that the day before, so you can learn what it looks like to use a minor 4 chord in a major key. This one, I did a lesson about workflow, which is, changing the way that your process for how you get things done. Change something about your workflow and then write something. This is a fun challenge. Write something using only one finger on your fretting hand. If you know some music theory, there's using that limitation, you can write something you've never written before. Write something from absolutes. This is about writing something starting from a point where you're like, I know what key I'm in, I know what chords are in this key, I know for sure if I play this set of chords that I'm absolutely staying in the key. This one, write something heavy, write something with finger picking, write something with open voicings. The thing I love about these community challenges is some of them I leave kind of open-ended on purpose, like write something sad or write something sneaky or somber. And it's like, you can kind of interpret that to mean what you want. But the thing about writing with a prompt in mind is it takes that intuitive stuff that you already do, and it takes the sort of mindful practice that you've been doing to try to assess what you're doing over here. And it makes you go, okay, can I take a piece of what I do over here and combine it with a constraint that I've never used before and put those things together to write something I've never written before. And the more you do that, I mean, I think I probably have some patrons in the chat here. And yo, patrons, if you're here and you're in the chat and you want to tell Ian your experience, doing community challenges, if you feel like they've been helpful for your creativity, if you feel like they've helped you get out of a rut. I put out a community challenge every Tuesday, and I have an online forum just for my patrons to post what you've written, talk about the process. It's for all skill levels. Some people are playing at a really high level. Some people just started playing recently and are just doing what they can. And I really love the mix of just like, You know, letting the challenge meet you where you're at and just seeing what you can come up with. It's a really fun environment, and it really can help people get out of a rut. Lauren Y says, Ian, the challenges have gotten me out of ruts and increased my knowledge base tremendously. There you go. And I usually pair them with a lesson that's like related to the challenge, especially recently. But that's one way to do it. If you don't want to join my school, that's totally cool. Getting yourself out of a rut, you know, you can try to challenge yourself. And you say, I'm going to write something like this artist, or I'm going to write something in a key I've never written in before, or I'm going to, you know, write something using a technique I've never used before. All of those things can be really helpful. Cool. Well, hey, I don't know if I'm seeing any other questions. We got a lot of people watching right now, which is great. But if I'm not getting any other questions, I might call it a day in a little bit, unless you want me to write something else. Oh, actually, Josh Kwan had a question. Josh says, dude, that bass was spicy. Can you do a video on writing bass riffs like that? Yeah, I mean, I've done a couple lessons about that kind of thing on my Patreon. I've got a series called Bass Basics that just kind of covers the basic way I think about bass lines. But I also host a weekly live Q&A, basically just like this, where you can ask me anything. You can ask me beforehand, and you can watch it later. And if you wanted to say, hey, like, give me some pointers for writing bass lines, I would do that. That'd be cool. Let's see. In the meantime here, I kind of don't want to go yet. I kind of want to write something else. Does that sound fun? I'd like to write something else. I'm just going to do it. Here we go. Let's get back to this recording software. And this was cool, but I think I'm gonna start a new project here. We'll start one not from scratch, but let's see. I gotta save this. YouTube Live. What is this? July 17. Cool. Yeah, okay. We'll write something else. This will be fun. I don't want to go yet, even though I'm getting hotter and hotter and hotter. It's worth it. It's a lot of fun. Okay. Let's see. Oh yeah, Aaron says, community challenges immediately highlight what skills you need to work on. That's great. Yeah. That's the other thing. For me, with my philosophy, part of what I love about writing music is, rather than having some external thing in the world telling you what you need to learn to be a good guitar player, what I love about writing music is most of your favorite artists use writing music as a way to get better at playing music. Because when you write something that you can't quite play, but you know that if you could play it, it would sound really sick. Now you've got just like an intrinsic practice method. It's so awesome. It's really fun. I should say, Ian, my Patreon, it's a 7-day trial. You can try it for free. It's $12 a month. You get a little bit of a discount if you pay for a year. If you don't want to join the community, the Patreon, my 4 main courses that are Music Theory for Guitar 1 and 2, and then I've got Caged Basics 1 and 2. Those are all for sale separately if you just want to buy those one at a time. But if you buy those, it costs probably about the same as a year of Patreon. So it's like, might as well just try Patreon for a year and see what you like, see what you think of it. Anyhow, let's get in here. I'm going to start by just making a beat, and we'll do this fast. We'll make a quick beat. And maybe I want to build a beat up one piece at a time. Do we want something fast? What's this tempo? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's kind of fun. I'm going to try something a little different. I'm gonna start with, I'm gonna quantize this. And I'm actually gonna make a duplicate of this track. And I'm gonna go, okay, and I like that. I'm gonna quantize that. And, oh, excuse me, wrong button. Well, I'm gonna accidentally keep showing you my Patreon, apparently. The button I meant to push was Command J, and then, let's see. I don't know. Let's just try this. This is a pretty blank canvas here. Let's, oops, and then I just erased it. I meant to erase this track. There we go. Now, let me just plug in the guitar here. Let's see what we can do. And Berlinski, I see your comment. Thank you. Thanks for being here. I'm glad you were able to catch me live. Oh yeah, while I'm at it, while I'm plugging in a guitar here, I was gonna say, how would you feel if I did this once a week? Just go live, do a little mini lesson, usually focused around creativity, writing some music, field some questions, call it a day. So here's the deal, chat, and this is very much like a business decision for me. It's if you like what I'm doing here, if you want me to do these lives more regularly, to be frank, like these videos, comment on them, like my lives, you know, maybe bookmark a part of the live stream that you really liked, with the you know, like 00:00 format of. When you do that in a comment, people can click and go right to that spot, you know? And so if you like my videos, liking them, commenting on them will push them a little further into the algorithm. YouTube is weird right now in general. I don't know if it's because of the economy or what, but, you know, come on by, leave a comment, share these videos. Anything you can do helps a lot. And, the more people watch these live streams on a regular basis, probably the more likely I am to want to do them weekly. And those are the kinds of things that help. So that's, you know, again, self-promotion is a weird thing, but this is my business, and I want people to see my videos because I want to make a living, but also this stuff really matters to me. I really, really think that so many people are missing out on just enjoying music because they never considered making music as a way to get better. It's so fun. And so this is my passion, helping people learn to make music, giving you the confidence and the tools you need to do it, and creating a community where other people are doing the same thing, and it's fun. That's my passion. That's what I want to do. And now I'm going to play some sort of funky guitar. I don't know what I'm doing yet, and this is part of writing music. I have not picked a key yet. I have not committed to anything. Also, my chair is too high, so I'm gonna sit back for a minute, and I don't know what I'm doing yet. I might even just mute my voice and play guitar for just a few minutes. That'll give me an excuse to have some air conditioning for a few minutes too, and we'll see where this goes. something cool is happening. I'm going to double the length of that. I might slow it down a little bit too, just a touch. Okay, something's coming together here. Let me show you what I'm doing. I'm leaving my air conditioning on because it's just too hot. But I'll mute it while I'm playing here. But the idea, what I'm sort of getting into here is, I'm centered around the key of D minor, but I'm not in D minor. I'm in D Dorian, which is basically a minor key with a sharp 6. I'll turn the AC off while I'm explaining this. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it's actually... And all that does is it just really changes one chord in the key, but it gives me this interesting... It's just D minor 7, G7, D minor 7, E minor, F, E minor, but I want to do something the second time around. Nah. That could work. Yeah. So the second time through, I want to play B flat, major 7, C7 to D minor. I think this will be cool. Okay, I'm gonna nail this if I can, and then we'll go back. I'm gonna mute myself again so I get some AC. Okay, turn off the AC. I think I got it. Scoot the chair in. Let's hear this. And then maybe I'll do a little mix on it, make it sound, get the tone a little nicer. That's not it. Let's see. Wow, none of these amp sims are sounding very good right now. No. Let's see. I'm picking all the wrong ones. These sound like trash. Let me find a... I forgot what I'm looking for. I'm actually just blanked out. Hang on a sec. I think what I want is not the pawn shop combo. I think after all that, I think I want... what's a studio combo? Let's see. Give me a sec here. I'm just sort of doing a little mix-a-roni. Okay, let's see. Okay, now I have a secret to tell you. My secret is I never practice keyboard. Partly because I'm not interested, partly because a full-size keyboard actually, for some reason, hurts my hands. I haven't figured out a way to play it where it doesn't hurt my hands. I have some long-standing guitar injuries that I have to take care of. And, so I'm not a very good piano player right now at this point in my life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how, with a little music theory knowledge, you can play some kind of crappy piano and then fix it later. And so that's what I'm going to do. This could end up on the blooper reel. Maybe I'll start a TikTok channel with how bad this potentially could be. Maybe it'll be fine. But I think maybe I'll be fine. It's not a very difficult key. Here, you can see exactly the moment where I mess up if you want. 2, 3, 4. So, not bad, but could be better. Let me get in here and tidy this up. So I'm gonna hit Q, which will make it all have better timing. But so I messed up. I played the wrong chord here because I forgot. Let's see. I like it up to here, but hang on a second here. I gotta mute just the drums. Let's see. I think I need to play a different rhythm. Hang on a sec here. This, by the way, this is what writing looks like. It's not a performance. I didn't like what I just did. I'm gonna redo it a totally different way. I like the first thing I did, which was but I think it could match the guitar a little better. But then I have to make it match this other part, so we'll figure it out. This is what writing is like. I have a little puzzle I have to figure out because I like the keyboard part I played, but it doesn't match the guitar, so I want to make it match better. So like I said, I missed a bunch of notes in there. I'm not a good keyboarder, but I'm gonna quantize this Q, and let's see. And I still don't like it. Hang on a sec. We're almost there. So what do we have? I like the rhythm of this part, but I played the wrong notes. The wrong notes are, this chord is a D minor chord, and I played a B diminished chord. So now we've got A, D, F, which remember, a minor chord, D minor is D, F, and A. I have the A on the bottom, that's totally fine. I think that's gonna work. So, and then we've got we have our B flat major chord, which I accidentally played something else. And do I want it to be a major 7? That kind of works. That's kind of fun. We need a bass line pretty soon here. We got a bass line countdown, but let's see how this sounds. So I'm gonna do this. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna do a little Command T, and I'm going to copy and paste this guy in here. I really want keyboard on this, but I'm not a keyboard player, so I'm doing what I can. So let's see. I think that rhythm, again, I gotta fix the chords. So what I'm looking for here is I can make it in. This has got to be an E minor chord. Wait, that's a... There we go. There we go. So, raise your hand in the chat if you're surprised at how much time this takes. If you're not a keyboard player, it can take more time. That's perfectly normal. Part of why I'm doing this is to show, yeah, this is kind of normal. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I forgot it goes. One time I played it where it stayed on F. The other time I played it where it went back down to. So there we go. Okay, that's fun. Okay. So Berlinski says faster than expected, but still, it's, you know, it's sometimes tedious. Make it a little fatter. Let's see, I accidentally hit R. Let's not do that. All right, I think it's probably time for a bass line. And then maybe, okay, so, let's try this. All right. We'll get the bass going. Let me, I gotta plug it in. Try to make this easy, but still. My goal is to streamline as much as possible, so I don't have to do much. All right, turn you down just a bit here. Whoa. Okay, so I'm gonna work on some bass for a few minutes, and my red face says it's time for air conditioning, so I'm gonna mute myself. I'm just gonna meditate on bass for a minute here. Okay, I'm getting somewhere, but I'm trying to decide. I kind of like the but then I don't like the E minor as much. So I keep trying to not to play it, but that's what I initially played, so I'm gonna stick with it for now, but I may end up wanting to change my rhythm part, because I can't make a bass line that I love out of it. But I kind of like that walk, so we'll just work it. And just remember, any super chats, I'll stop and give Betty a treat. Or if you have a super chat with a question, I will definitely get to that question. That's the idea. Have fun, whatever, you know what I'm saying. I'll be back for questions, but I'm gonna work this bass line a little bit more. I'm gonna try to figure something out. Okay, that'll have to do. Also, apparently my air conditioning wasn't on that whole time. But here's what I'm thinking. I've got my D minor root note. And then I play my fifth, root, root, fifth, root, 7, 5. Those are just notes of the chord. Root, fifth, root, 7, fifth. And then I'm playing the root note of that G chord. And then I'm walking up the scale with octaves. G, A, B, C, which is cool because I get to play the third of the chord to let you know, oh, this is a weird major chord. And then I'm back to root of the D minor. And then I do a little chromatic walk up to the E minor. F, E, which is just root, fifth, root, 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 fifth, root, 7, fifth, root. Walk up to root, root, fifth, root. Oh, that goes. And then it's just playing root of that B flat. Root, 5, 7. This little shape right here, basically a power chord, is just root 5 and an octave higher than root. Root, fifth, root. And it sounds so sick without much effort. So maybe in the spirit of talking about how chords are just chords, and when you're jamming with someone, you're just interacting with those chords in a different way. Like everything I'm doing here, this is just D minor, G major, D minor, and you know what? I will say, I did put some passing chords in there that's really interesting. Technically it goes D minor to, what is this chord? It's an A minor chord, but just for a split second. It's almost like it doesn't really count. It just is like some notes on the way to the next chord. Same with this chord. What is this chord? It's another A minor, but it doesn't count. This is the cool thing about passing chords. When you play it like real quick on the way to the next chord, it almost like doesn't count as part of the chord progression. So this is really just D minor to G major, but I'm sneaking in a little A minor for a second. But you tell me, do you think it clashes with the guitar and the bass? I can't figure out why this guitar sounds so garbage. I'm gonna change tactics on it. I'm gonna make it just sound like console guitar. I'm just not digging it. Also, I didn't want distortion, I wanted overdrive. Now, this is just me being weird. Okay, console guitar. Let's see. There we go. Oh, that is the metronome. Yeah, I turned the metronome off. Thank you. So I got distracted, but basically we've got a D minor. We've got a G major. And then we've got another D. Did I say D major? D minor to G major. Then we got another D minor here. And then we have E minor, F, E minor. F, E minor, E minor, F, E minor. Then we got the same thing over here, except we've got now in this section B flat. And then we've got C major. But hopefully by now, you're hearing how everything we've talked about earlier, which was you take a basic chord progression, but you mess with the voicings of it, and you interact with a bass player and a keyboard player, and you start to expand. What does it mean to play a chord progression? What does it mean to strum these chords? What does it mean to mess around with these different voicings? You can do so much with it. It's amazing. It's really fun. I love it. I hope you had fun today. I think I'm going to call it a day. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, everybody. And again, just to let you know, I go live like this. Well, not quite like this. I go live every week, every Thursday at 10 a.m. I have a live Q&A where I answer whatever questions you have, whether it's technique questions or maybe genre questions or theory questions or gear questions, whatever it is. That's what I like to do on Thursdays at 10 a.m. on my Patreon, which is my online school. Also, every Monday, I'm putting out a lesson these days. Every Tuesday, I'm putting out a community challenge, usually based on that lesson that can get you out of that creative rut to help you get better at writing, get better at understanding music theory, and just having a lot of fun. Thanks for hanging out. Come on over for a free trial. Check it out. I dare you. And I'll be there waiting for you. See you all later. Thanks for hanging out. Peace. Goodbye.